Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is This Week I Learned series where we talk about tips and tricks and tools that I find on the internet. And this week I'm going to be talking about a tool called as AWS Cloud9 because I get a lot of comments when I actually present this tool during my demos. Before we start looking at the new tool for this week, I want to discuss a little bit about what is an IDE. An IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it's a software application that actually helps programmers or developers to develop software code efficiently. So if you are a programmer or even studied some kind of computer science in your college, you might be familiar with names like Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, Eclipse, IntelliJ, and so on and so forth. So you might know that these actually help you write, run, debug, and deploy applications. Well, now coming to AWS, AWS supports multiple IDEs and provides toolkits for them. But today, we are going to learn about AWS Cloud9 because this IDE is not installed on your laptop or your machine. It just sits in the cloud. So yes, Cloud9 is a cloud-based IDE that you can access with your browser. Let's look at some of its benefits and dive deep into the demo. So to create the Cloud9 environment, first you need to log into your AWS account. So that I have already done here. I've logged in as a demo user in my AWS account. I'm in the US East region of AWS. You go here, you search for, hey, I want Cloud9. And you can see I've actually favorited Cloud9, and Cloud9 is an IDE for writing, running, and debugging code. Just click on Cloud9 and it will take you to the dashboard of the Cloud9 console. You can find all the documentation that you need easily here. So whatever you need for getting started, or if you want to integrate with other AWS related services, you can find that information here. Now to create environment, just click on Create Environment. Now here we need to provide some name, some logical name for this particular environment that I've created. So for the demo, let's say I'm just saying, this week I learned, or TWIL in short, and I'm just showing a demo. You can give an optional description, and then this is important. Here you can either create a new EC2 instance. So Cloud9, you can tell, hey, for creating this new environment, I need a new EC2 instance, and Cloud9 will create these EC2 instance in your account. Or if you have an existing instance and you want to use that as an IDE environment, let's say you have a lot of files or a lot of data actually stored on this EC2 instance, you want to just use that with the new IDE, you can also do that. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to use the new EC2 instance. If you want to use existing compute, you can check out information and you can find more information in the document on how you can, what all steps you need to take to actually use Cloud9 IDE on your existing compute. Next, for EC2 instance, because EC2 is nothing but virtual machines and we are running an IDE on a virtual machine. Now, depending on your requirement, if you've been running heavy workloads, I would suggest going a little bit higher. For the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to select the M5.large, which is like 8 GB of RAM and 2 virtual CPUs. If you want more, you can actually select more instance types as well. Of course, the supported platforms today are Amazon Linux 2 and Ubuntu Server. I'm just going with the recommended. And then there is timeout as well. Like how long till you have been inactive should it wait before going to auto hibernation? Remember, it's hibernating and not terminating. So if you're not doing any activity for 30 minutes, it will automatically go ahead and shut down that EC2 instance. Okay. Once you come back and once you say, hey, I want to access this environment, it will again start that EC2 instance. All your data, all your files are still persistent. Only thing is not persistent, I think, is the terminal. If you're not able to understand what all the things I'm saying, just wait for the demo. I will explain this again. But yes, you can set out the timeout here as to never timeout and or the default 30 minutes. Let's keep it default. The other things I'm just keeping as default, because if you're starting with this something new, you can keep these things default, but you have the option of configuring it further, like which VPC the EC2 instance should be, what subnet, etc. And as a best practice, you should also add a tag. So here I'm just adding a custom tag as purpose, and I'm saying it's for my demo. So I know that, hey, I've created this Cloud9 environment for demo, and once I've done with the demo, I can go ahead and terminate it. Now, IAM, or AWS Identity and Access Management, actually creates two new roles for you. Okay, so it creates the AWS service role for AWS Cloud9 and AWS Cloud9 SSM access role. Now, this role is required because you will be using the IDE, that is Cloud9, to do some other AWS activities. And the IDE actually needs permissions to go ahead and do those activities on AWS services. So this is how Cloud9 is going to get those permissions. And there is also another one. So if you don't want any of these, you can go ahead and delete them. But make sure you're giving some kind of permissions to your Cloud9 environment so that you can do those particular activities. We'll see this in the demo as well. So let's go ahead and click on create. And what will happen is that it does take several minutes because it goes ahead and launches an AWS EC2 instance. If you want, we can also go to AWS EC2, or you can just click on this and it will tell you which EC2 instance it has created. You can go ahead and click on manage EC2 instance. It will actually show you that, hey, there is an EC2 instance that is currently running but is in status check initialization. And if you go to security, you can see that it has an instance profile that is associated with it already. Okay, so let's go back to Cloud9, and it will take a while because it's creating. You can also check more information as to network settings and the tags, and anything you'll want to edit, you can go ahead and edit that. So that's it. That was quick actually. It's already in ready status, it's already been created. So if you want to click that, just access the IDE, just click on open in Cloud9. If you are in the dashboard, if you are in the dashboard, you can just click on open and it will actually open that IDE as well. So that's it. Our IDE is now been created. Now we are connecting to our IDE using the Chrome browser. You can see that I've not actually installed anything on my local machine. I created this IDE in the AWS account, and now I'm accessing this IDE using the browser. So it will take a couple of seconds, maybe up to a minute, for it to actually create that instance for us to let us log in. But later on, when it actually restarts, it's much faster than the initial creation of that EC2 instance. So that's it. This is my account, and let me give a quick tour of how the IDE looks like. So your typical menus are available, your file menu, your view menu, your window. A lot of these menus are available. On the right, you have the settings. On the other either side, you have your different options. If you want to have, you can select them, you can unselect them, whatever you want to do with these options as well. So let's look at create a file. You want to edit a file, you have a particular editor. I want to say something, I can actually write here. There's a lot of other things, facilities, like you can actually skip to a particular line and jump to a particular line, you can do that. If you want to have markdown, you want to count spaces or tabs, you can do that. So there are a lot of functionalities that are typical to a particular IDE as well. I can use this environment for this particular demo. Okay, I can go ahead and create a new environment if I want for some other demo that I'm doing. Okay, so let's say I want to create a Kubernetes demo. I can go ahead and create this new environment, and this will be a new EC2 instance that will be created for me. So what I can do is I can keep both these environments different. I can install different libraries, I can install different packages on these different environments, and if I don't need them, I can actually delete them. So I'm no longer actually tied to a particular single development machine. So I'm for a machine or a particular environment. If something is goofed up or something is not right, I can just terminate this and create a new one and start going. Or I mostly use this for my demos. So for example, if you go to an event, I want to present a demo, live coding in front of thousands of people that are watching me do live coding. And this has happened actually previously. A friend of mine, his laptop keyboard actually stopped responding during the event day. So 1 hour before he was supposed to go on the stage and present, his keyboard just stopped responding, and there was nothing we could do because his demo was actually on that machine itself. So everything was installed on that machine, and there was not enough time for him to go ahead and create the whole thing on some another machine. Now, if you are someone who's being very good and keeping the source code somewhere else, that's great. But sometimes there's a lot of data, a lot of information, or a lot of configuration that you've done on your machine, and you don't have enough time to actually move all of that. And in those scenarios, I think Cloud9 actually helps a lot, because if I can just keep it in a Cloud9 machine, I can maybe take an AMI snapshot of that machine, and even if something happens to my laptop, the code is still in my AWS account. So I can take someone else's laptop, I can just log into my AWS account from that laptop and access my Cloud9 environment and show the demo. So that way it makes your life a little bit more simple. There are a lot of browsers that Cloud9 supports today. So there's Google Chrome, there's Safari, there's Firefox, and Microsoft Edge as well. Let's look at the next benefit, that is I can start new projects very quickly. Now I showed you here, if you see on the Git side, I can actually initialize a Git repository here itself, or I can actually clone a Git repository. So let me quickly go to my GitHub and clone a repository for you. Okay, and that's it. So it has actually cloned my repository. If I go to the folders, you can now see there's a new folder for my repository. And if I want to make changes, for example, I just want to say, hey, some name for VPCC IDR, and let's go here. So there are no changes, but the moment I save it, it will detect that, hey, I've made changes to this particular file. So I can also do a comparison from the working tree as to what were the changes that were made. Do I want to accept it, or commit it back to my Git, or do I want to just discard these particular changes that I've made, right? The next is definitely AWS integration. Because this is built by AWS, there's a lot of integration with AWS. We can create CDK or Code Whisperer or serverless applications directly from this Cloud9 environment. The next is definitely the direct terminal access. For example, Cloud9 already comes installed with certain default applications. The first one is of course PWD. Like I want to see this is a Linux machine. I want to see what is the folder structure where I am right now. So you can use your Linux commands. Secondly, it also has applications pre-installed, like AWS CLI is already installed. So you can actually see that, hey, AWS CLI is by default installed, and you can access that directly from here. So if I want to say AWS EC2 describe instances, I can actually see these instances. Now you would be asking, Rohini, but where did it get the access for, right? How did it actually access my AWS account? So remember, when we actually created this AWS environment, we actually gave permissions for the instance profile IAM access as well. So if you go to AWS user settings and you don't want to use the AWS provided, which is actually recommended, but if you don't want to use the AWS provided role, IAM role and permissions, you can actually say, hey, just stop my AWS managed temporary credentials. I will use the AWS configure to actually configure my access key and secret key in this case. And then you can provide access to Cloud9 to access your AWS services. So there is, last but not the least, a very nice feature that is available in Cloud9 is sharing, or you can actually code together with one of your colleagues in the same environment. So let's say I've already created an IAM user called as Cloud9 demo, okay, and I want to invite Cloud9 demo to come and access this environment. So I'm going to invite Cloud9 demo for read-write access to this environment. But please make sure that you are sharing this environment with someone you trust, because you are giving access to your IDE to someone else. Okay, so I'm just saying, hey, give access, and yes, now I've added the Cloud9 environment. So let's do this here. So let me quickly go ahead and show you. So I've logged into my other account for the Cloud9 demo. So if you go to log into the Cloud9 environment in the other account, you might not see it under my environments, but I will actually see it under shared with me. So because this is Cloud9 demo, I can actually open here and shared with me. And let's close some of these. So you can see actually that Cloud9 demo has come online. I actually got that notification. And let me close few of these windows. And what I can do here, let's open the same thing on the other side. So you can see actually Cloud9 demo has a different theme than what I wanted for my particular environment. Okay, so you can also have different themes, you can have different color combinations, because these two are, even if it's the same environment, two different people are using it, so user settings are applying separately for these different users. Okay, so you can see that where is D, or the demo user, where is the mouse for the demo user. So you can actually see, if I start typing here, you can see that changes is visible to Cloud9 user. If the Cloud9 user is making some changes, I can also see those changes on the other side. There is also a functionality where I can chat with Cloud9. So let's see. Hello. And I got a message. So I can say, hey, it's a quiet place here. And I can actually send and chat with someone else on the other side. So I'll say, don't give bad names, bad logical names. And it would say, oh, okay, I do it. So I'm actually being able to code with someone else. I can chat with them. We both can interact and share the same environment. But you need to be aware that AWS Cloud9 environments can actually currently only be shared with IAM users within the same AWS account. So that is something you should definitely remember. Now that I've shared a lot of benefits of using AWS Cloud9, there are certain caveats that you should be aware of. The first is, this IDE is not available without internet. So if you are someone who likes to do some coding or do some practicing while you are on flight, let's say you are into in-flight mode and you don't have internet, you won't be able to access the AWS Cloud9, because this is via browser, via the internet, right? So that is one thing. So I always have something like a Visual Studio. If I'm doing something very offline, always keep doing that on my own machine or on my own laptop. Second is, you pay for this EC2 instance. So this EC2 instance on which Cloud9 is running, you pay for that. You don't pay for AWS Cloud9 as a service, but you are paying for this particular EC2 instance. So make sure that you do set the hibernation settings. The settings, and go to EC2 instances, you can actually change this value as well. So for example, you want to shut it down after 30 minutes of inactivity, or do you want to shut it down after a week? I would suggest stick to the default of 30 minutes so that you stop paying for that EC2 instance if you're not actually using it. So for my particular use case, Cloud9 works great. I want to showcase demos. I want to create different demos. I want to install packages and show you again and again. I want to create fancy layouts. For example, let me show this on the screen. This is one of my layout I use for the carpenter demo that I show. So I want to show fancy layouts. I can show that. I don't need to worry about having dependency of my local machine. Once I'm done with the demo, I can just push all the code to my source code repository, and I can just terminate the machine when I'm done. So no local changes are required in this case. So for my particular use case, this works great. If you're working in a team and they want to access the AWS cloud, you don't want to worry about access permissions, you don't want to worry about configurations, you can actually automate a lot of these configurations and use them. A lot of our workshops, a lot of our hands-on workshops actually use AWS Cloud9 environments. So it's an amazing way to actually create something that is repeatable and something that you can use as an immutable IDE as well. So that's it. That's the demo of AWS Cloud9. Let me know in the comment section how you found this demo and if you found the movie name that I mentioned in this particular video. Thank you for watching. Do like and comment on the videos and subscribe to my channel. It really motivates me to continue creating useful content. Bye-bye.